How accurate is a ramp test compared to a normal 20-minute FTP test to find out your estimated FTP? That's a question which has really kind of got me thinking a lot, because I've really struggled when it has come to 20-minute thresholds, but ramp tests I really don't mind doing because you're only suffering for about 3 to 4 minutes, really. Welcome to today's episode. Today's episode, I want to break down my ramp test that I've done recently. It was my second ever one through TrainerRoad. I've done a 17.5 kilometer time trial race, which I want to have a quick run through of that as well. And also I entered a race on the weekend, a Zwift race, which was about 40K, and kind of what my thoughts were about that. So let's break it down and let's get into my review of my time trial. Okay, so here we go, jumping straight into this time trial. It was 17.5K and I went in, this is the second time I've ever done any time trial before. So I didn't go in really with a massive plan. I just knew that I wanted to try and aim for around 300 watts as my average. So I got my Wahoo Element Bolt to give me a bit of an idea of what my 3-second average watts are and what my 30-second average watts are, just so I can get an idea, because this is a flat track. So because it was a flat track, I knew I just had to essentially sit at a threshold-ish pace and kind of see what happens. So sitting in at roughly around that 300 watts-ish, it started to feel really good, and was just flying along. As you can see here, you know, for the first 3 segments, all sitting around just over, say, 300-ish watts. So I knew I was kind of in a good place, and it was starting to hurt, but it wasn't at a point where I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to hold on or not. So, and what was also nice was Coach Max was also doing this one along with me. So I knew that he was going to be getting a time by the end of this. So I thought it gave me that little bit of extra buzz. And I actually had a Skype call with Coach Dan and Coach Max. Dan was giving us some tips along the way, you know, giving us some coaching points about like power to kind of hold, looking at our average power and stuff, and kind of giving us some say coach's insight, and that was really beneficial. So chipping away at this, really enjoyed it, and definitely would have another go at this. One of the most interesting points though was by the end of it, I was pretty much averaging, say, around, I think, about the 322 watts. Now the reason that's interesting is because I'd done a ramp test the day before. Now the day before, my ramp test come out at 322. So I think the average of this at the end was 320 watts. So it was 2 watts under the day before's average. So I found that really interesting that I was able to sustain for over 20 minutes that power. Now, if this would have been an FTP test, I probably would have failed. I wouldn't have been able to get anywhere near that 320, but because essentially I gamified my FTP threshold challenge, it gave me the ability to push that a little bit more and really consistent, because it just gave me a bit of a better insight. So the takeaway from this, I really felt, oh yeah, I know it doesn't matter because you're supposed to be competing against yourself, but with me, as soon as you see someone in front of you, you've got to try and overtake them and just try and stay in front of them as long as possible. But yeah, really enjoying these time trials that Zwift have added into the mix. So I'm definitely going to be doing them weekly. Now, just want to jump into my ramp test that I did. So as I said, got to the end of this, felt amazing, and I knew that I'd push, but I definitely still have a little bit more left in the tank. So went through the finish line here. So I won't bore you too much with just watching me in the corner of a screen here, but this was me the day before on my ramp test. So this is every minute it increases wattage, and my previous FTP before this was, I think it was about 312, I think it was. So this is me pushing deep, digging deep, and making all sorts of noises. Now, big problem about this is I'm in my new office that I've been set up. I have my daughter next door, probably thinking, what the fuck is he doing in there? Like she's probably quite scared. Some of the noises I'm making, and like the faces if she saw me. And then right in front of me, I have my next door neighbours, which they're probably thinking, middle of the day, they probably think, what on earth is he up to? So, you know, what on earth is he up to day after day, making all those weird grunting, deep, heavy breathing noises. That was that point where I gave in. And so made it all the way up to the 442 block, which gave me a new FTP, which I was really, really happy with, of 322. So what that then means from here is the comparison between here of every minute increase in your power, the ramp test, which for me favors my style of training. I feel a lot more comfortable doing this. I'm able to recover really well after the ramp test, and compare that to, say, a 20-minute FTP test. If you fail to, say, pace it correctly, you're going to pay for it. So I definitely am a big fan of these ramp tests, and doing the TT the day after was a real insight into, I held that pace pretty much, I'd say, 25 minutes. So it shows that I was able to hold pretty much 320 for that duration. So it shows how good the ramp test is as a good measure of your average FTP. And just lastly, I actually did a race this Saturday just gone in the morning with Coach Dan and Coach Max as well. And I was able to essentially sustain the same sort of power for a, I think 35k race. So again, I was averaging that 3.2, 3.3 watts per kilo for a race. So these are the type of insights that they back each other up, but I don't want to obviously keep pushing myself doing these say highly intense races, but especially when I'm in a build phase at the moment. But it's just a really interesting insight. So if you're unsure whether the ramp test is a good test for you to do, I highly recommend it, and I put it into practice the next day in the time trial and was able to hold that same power. So just a little bit of a takeaway. So I hope that gives you a good insight, guys, into how good the ramp test really is. Well, how good I've personally found it. And so obviously the 20-minute threshold FTP test is an extremely valid test, but for someone that is quite new to cycling and wants to get a really good insight into where their current FTP average is, and they may not be that good at pacing at the moment, the ramp test I feel was an absolute perfect addition into my training. So thank you, TrainerRoad, for using the ramp test as your way to get your average FTP. I really hope you kind of got something from today's video. This is just something new that we want to do at Beyond the Saddle, where we want to really dive deep into our own training and kind of give some insights into some of the races that we're doing, some of our training, and hopefully give you something to take away from it and implement into your training. So today's takeaway point is give a ramp test a go if you've never done one. If you have done one, feel confident that that's a really good comparison to a 20-minute FTP. So just from my own personal experience, give it a try. Do let us know what kind of test you do. It'd be really interesting to hear, see if you absolutely love a 20-minute ramp test, a 20-minute FTP test. So let us know in the comment section down below. Drop us a message. We'd love to hear from you guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.